What did you learn on your trek to Antarctica? Or I guess your trek through Antarctica.
There were many great learnings through this experience. We can dive into what it was a little later, but one of the core teachings, one of the core learnings that Antarctica solidified and crystallized after decades of doing very hard things was this concept that I now call the paradox of oneness. It's the realization that the human experience is a dance of opposites. Life and death, light and dark, ego, humility, control, surrender, pain, pleasure, so on and so forth. And there's these series of dualities that encompass the human experience. The paradox of oneness is the realization that they are not two separate entities. They're not opposites, but two expressions of the same whole. A good analogy is breathing. Inhalation, exhalation. Two opposing forces that create life itself. And all unnecessary suffering is caused by resisting or clinging to either edge of any duality. But true peace, freedom, and even mastery at whatever your craft is found by not only embracing every edge, but exploring every edge as a pathway to your next evolution. And over many years, I've seen not only for myself, but for others as well, that all unnecessary suffering is caused by resisting or clinging to one side of one duality. So for me, for example, after decades of doing many, many hard things, there was an incident a few years ago. I was out running, and I saw this sign that said 5K fun run. And I had visceral, subconscious disgust at the idea of a fun run. You don't run for fun. Like, every run has to be this exercise in suffering. And it was funny, at the time, it hit me later that I had gotten so good at doing hard things and embracing suffering that I was creating unnecessary suffering in all areas of my life. So I went to the other edge of joy. And in Antarctica, you see these dualities existing as one in one condensed moment of time. I remember, for example, it was day 38. I climbed this very steep ridge called the Wujek Ridge, and I'm looking out at this epic landscape. I'm geographically the most isolated life form on the entire planet in this moment because I was completely alone out there in Antarctica. And you see, and I'd set up my tent at the bottom of this hill because I had to go up the hill 3 times to take all my gear up there. It was quite a steep hill. So I could see my tent in the bottom, just a small dot. And you see that we are nothing in this vast expanse, a small nothing in this magnificent expanse of Antarctica. But at the same time, in this moment of pure humility about how small I am, I felt like a god in that moment, all-powerful. Because I was out there alone. I chose to step out onto this edge, and I had just climbed a very steep climb, so easier than I thought I would be. So I felt so powerful, so, just this tapping into my own energy of this power and this humility coexisting. Even in Antarctica, within a period of 1 hour, I would have the highest highs, feeling pure bliss, connected to God. Even though I was completely alone, paradoxically, I had moments of more connection than I've ever felt in my life. Once again, you see two opposite forces coexisting. But I would have this moment of bliss, of oneness, and the next hour, the lowest low, struggling, suffering, dragging this 400-pound sled through soft snow. My sled initially, it was 2 sleds, and initially weighed 420 pounds. Going uphill from day one. It was unforgiving. But that was one of the core learnings that got crystallized in a deeper way in Antarctica.
That do you know Garen Jones?
I do not.
He's a Genius Network member.
Okay.
I was interviewing him, and he had, I wish I knew about the paradox of oneness. Is that?
That's what
I wish I knew about this because he was telling me a story about how he was in jail and that's when he found freedom. And I was like, how does that makes no sense because they're two opposite things.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, it does make sense because that was when I felt most free. And then I got actually, released, and then I was like, oh, what now?
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm in prison.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Oh my goodness, man. So I guess the next question is why? Why were you out there?
Why do this? So on a tactical level, my goal was to complete the world's first coast-to-coast ski crossing of Antarctica without dogs or kites. I was dragging 2 sleds that initially weighed 420 pounds for 115 days completely alone over a period of 1,750 miles. That was the mission. Not only had this never been accomplished before, it had never been attempted before. Many adventurers considered it to be impossible. It was that hard. That was more of the tactical why. For me, going out on these edges, there's a much deeper why. Over decades of doing hard things that initially began in 2004 when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, I learned in the Marines the value of going to war with yourself, of looking for a struggle, not just for tapping into something within yourself, within the human spirit to transcend that struggle, but for something greater as well. In the Marines, for example, we live for the good of the group. My men and my mission were more important than my own well-being. So it taught me that in life, in business, in relationship, in anything, you have to battle a dragon to unearth a treasure. The bigger the dragon, the greater the treasure. So I went out there on the most extreme edge I could find to explore the very edges of the human potential, to battle the biggest dragon I could find, to see what would be revealed about the human soul in the depths of solitude, suffering, unimaginable hardship, complete isolation. Because out there, you're away from the distraction, the decadence of life in this world that clouds our experience of pure reality through the constructs and the masks we wear to move through this world. So I went out there to battle the biggest dragon I could find, and ultimately to unearth the greatest treasures of the soul and bring that wisdom back to share with my human family.
That's very, that's incredibly philosophical. That reminds me of, I think it's Nietzsche who's like, the highest form of human expression is to give yourself as much responsibility as you can and then prevail, or something like that. He's like, you need to bury yourself in all of this stuff. I love what you said about going to war with yourself. That's like, it seems like a mix of all of these legendary philosophies. Like there's sprinkles of stoicism in there.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
Thank you.
So what is, can you explain what Fearvana is?
Sure. Fearvana is, the paradox of oneness is kind of a meta-level understanding of this concept of Fearvana. I wrote this book 5 years ago, and again, in Antarctica, and since then, it's been crystallized in an even more deeper way. But Fearvana is this idea that fear and nirvana, two seemingly contradictory ideas, are in fact complementary. And fear is not the antithesis of nirvana, it's an access point of nirvana. And I wrote this book to combat the demonization of fear, and not just fear, but suffering of any kind. One of the things I do when I speak around the world is I'll show a slide with words like fear, stress, anxiety, adversity, pain, suffering, struggle, and I ask people, how many of you think of these as positive words? Doesn't matter where you are in the world, nobody raises their hands. And that is the problem that causes us real suffering. We label these emotions as bad. We label these experiences as bad. But the reality is there's no bad or good emotions. Some are more challenging than others,
right? But
they're not bad. They are valuable. Another concept that got crystallized is this idea of the paradox of virtue. So courage is the most foundational of virtue.
I love this one. Yes.
Yeah, you're familiar. Maya Angelou puts it, forgive me if I'm destroying the quote, but the idea of the quote is that without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently, only erratically. So courage is the core virtue to do anything. Anything you want in life. If you want something new, you're going to have to do something you've never done before, which is scary. So you're going to need courage. Now, what's in the way of courage? Fear. It takes no courage for me to do something that I'm comfortable with. Courage demands fear, and yet we demonize this thing that is the very access point to the core virtue, right? So I wrote this book to combat that demonization of not just fear, but even in my own experience. When I came back from the war, I struggled with survivor's guilt. And I was told not to feel guilty. And rationally, I get it. When I was in Iraq, my vehicle drove over an active bomb that for some reason didn't explode. My friend's vehicle drove over an active bomb. It exploded. He died. Rationally, I get it. You can't control what happens in war. Bullets fly where they fly. Bombs explode when they explode. But emotionally, it didn't change the fact that I was guilty. Everybody, and people say this from a loving place, so I'm not faulting people for saying this. Don't feel guilty. It's not your fault. I get it. But my guilt was nothing more than an expression of love for my brother.
Right.
So instead of demonizing it as a bad emotion, I reframed it. For a long time, I actually had this picture of my friend up on my wall, and it said, "This should have been you. Earn this life."
Whoa.
My guilt helped me sober up. It helped me write my book, Fearvana, because I used to struggle with drinking. I got to a point where I was drinking a bottle of vodka a day, till one morning after 5 days of binge drinking, I was about to slit my wrists. And that was the moment that began my climb out of the abyss that ultimately led to the book Fearvana, to reframing my own relationship to struggle, to trauma, even trauma. I had been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, but guilt was not a disorder. Normal human expression of love, and when you serve in the Marines, you have love for your brothers. I struggled with loud noises. This is not a disorder. I spent 7 months in a war zone where loud noises meant death. Realizing that post-traumatic stress does not mean post-traumatic stress disorder. Those are two very different things. But when we ascribe the identity and label of disorder, we suddenly change our entire paradigm and relationship to the post-traumatic stress. By releasing that label, I can now turn my stress and my pain, and I can alchemize it into something beautiful.
I love the idea of sort of what you identify with, the meaning that you ascribe to a thing is what it becomes, right? The idea of reframing guilt as a natural extension of love is not only objectively true, it also helps you, I guess, humanize yourself. Is that the right way to
I would 100%
put that?
agree.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me because there's especially in my generation, brother, there's so many people that are like, and of course there are like chemical imbalances in your brain that will make you like clinically depressed or clinically anxious or whatever. But there's so many people that stamp their identity with I am depressed, I am anxious, I can't go into social circles, I will freak out, all these things. And that literally becomes true.
Reality. Exactly.
So why not replace those, I don't really want to call them limiting beliefs, but it's more of like these tags that you put on your identity for little to no reason.
Yeah.
Why not replace those with things that actually serve you?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Right?
You might have heard what you say after the words "I am" becomes you. So you get to choose what that is. These are constructs we ascribe to ourselves. And to your point, yes, there may be some neurological differences. You know, I haven't ever measured my brain on this, but I've been told people who struggle with addiction probably have some faulty dopamine receptors. I have even if you forget that, sidestep that in the physical realm, I have scoliosis, I have flat feet, I have a blood disorder that 2 doctors told me would kill me in Marine Corps boot camp that transports less oxygen through my body.
Oh, wow.
Less than ideal for an athlete and a Marine. But who cares? I'm not going to let biology become my destiny, you know? So it's the same thing on a neurological level. It's a science of neuroplasticity. I go way deeper into this in the book, but the brain can change itself. Whatever neurological mechanisms you have within you, you can change it through conscious effort.
I was talking with, do you know Dr. Donnice Warden?
Yeah, I do.
I was talking with Dr. Donnice about the placebo effect.
Yeah.
And how no one thinks that it is as fascinating as it is. You're telling me, if we're in a blind trial, I give this person a sugar pill and I give that person Adderall or whatever it is, they both feel similar.
Yeah.
And maybe the person that took the sugar pill feels even more energized, or even. So we're just going to gloss over the fact that the brain completely shifted based on a belief that wasn't even necessarily true.
Yeah.
That's magical.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Like
the placebo effect is incredibly powerful.
It's ridiculous to me that's just like just glossed over completely. Glossed over. I love this quote that says, "There's nothing more powerful in the universe than the mind that creates it."
Yeah.
Because there's I think it's like I'm so gonna mess this up, but it's like in either quantum physics or maybe just normal physics. There's the observer effect, which is like. Light is in many places at once, but when we see it with the human eye, it's in one place. A rainbow doesn't exist until the human eye sees it, and it's like the refraction of light through a water molecule.
Yeah.
So we literally, for lack of better terms, create our own realities by observing.
Yeah.
And as soon as we ascribe meaning or attach words onto what it is that we're seeing, feeling, or hearing, or whatever it is, then things change, obviously.
Absolutely.
Right? So, good Lord, man. I love what you said about was it the base virtue paradox? The one where you need courage in order to...
The paradox of virtue itself is that to have courage, you need fear. You want strength, you got to have struggle.
Okay.
It's this realization that the barrier to a virtue is also the point of entry into that virtue.
I thought that I knew what you were talking about. I confused that with I forget what it's called, but it's like each virtue has a sort of scale or spectrum, and to take courage, for example, the lack of it makes you a coward, and a surplus of courage makes you reckless, or something like that. It's that kind of you need a golden medium between I'm completely reckless, I don't care about anything, I'm so courageous that it's at detriment to myself, or I have such little courage that I can't even go outside or something like that. It's I would say that you definitely have a surplus of courage for doing what you do, man. It's crazy.
Well, I've had, and that's the thing, people often hear what I do and they're like, you're fearless. Far from it. I'm terrified with all the things I do, but fear is not bad. That's the very essence of Fearvana. One of my many mantras is fear propels you to prepare. So when you're scared of something, even writing a book, Fearvana, I was scared. I was scared people would judge it, people would think it's stupid, people would hate it, whatever. 1-star review on Amazon, all those things, right? But because I was scared of writing a bad book, I studied how do you write a better book. I studied from authors like Jack Canfield, Tim Ferriss, how I learned how to be a better writer, and ultimately wrote a book that was worthy of being endorsed by the Dalai Lama. But fear propelled me to that. Same thing with Antarctica. I literally they actually, astronauts call this negative visualization. We've all heard of positive visualization, and that's valuable, so it's not an either or. But negative visualization is visualizing everything that can go wrong. And that's a valuable place. I'm not saying you live there, but you do it so you can prepare for it. So in Antarctica, I would write down, here are all the things that could go wrong. Got it. How do I prepare for it? So when things do go wrong, even in training, I can now train for it. I can prepare for it. I can have a repair kit accordingly. So it's a valuable place to access, to use, to drive you forward in your craft.
I was just talking about this with one of my prior guests. It's basically the same thing, but it's like negative. I think it's like negative action taking or something like that. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger used to do this in companies that they invested in. They would have a sheet of paper and they would write down everything that they could do to ruin the company as fast as possible, to drive it into the ground, burn it down, whatever. And then they would take that list and then just reverse everything. So if it's like, well, we sell less products, we sell more products.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of a thing.
I love it.
I love the idea of negative visualization, especially in such an intense and extreme circumstance.
Yeah, well, consequences are pretty fatal.
Yeah, they're pretty, they're oof, good Lord. Yeah, man, it's very important. And of course, not dwelling on those things. You don't want to live there, like you said. But making sure that you are prepared is incredibly important.
Exactly.
Especially when it is literally a life and death scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's not much room for error in something like that.
Yeah.
So obviously you talked about going to war with yourself. It's something that you learned in the Marines. What was the internal war when you were out there in Antarctica?
It was constant. It was a constant internal war. I mean, just to paint a picture of what Antarctica is. So for the first 30 days, it was flat, white nothingness. It was uphill, but flat in how you see it. And so what I mean is there's no stimuli. So there's no trees. There's no mountains. Polar travel is a lot less dangerous than mountain climbing, for example. I get compared to climbing Everest a lot. On a mountain, you can actually fall off the mountain. So there's the danger element of that. I've been on mountains where it's a thin ridge line, 1,000-foot drop on each side. When you're on a ridge line like that, your mind's not floating around. You're right there in front of you on your step. Also, when you climb a mountain, it's more dynamic. Yeah. Every day is a little different. The terrain is different. The views are different. You take rest days to acclimatize. In Antarctica, it's none of that. Imagine walking while staring into a flat white wall and doing that for 10 hours, 11 hours a day.
And somehow it's still uphill.
And it's uphill. For the first, it was absolutely unforgiving. So point of that is to say, to paint a picture now. So when you do this, which is what this is what draws me to polar travel, as opposed, I've done every outdoor sport you can think of. I've been blessed to have experienced them all. And polar travel is not as dangerous, but it's a lot more mental and physical suffering. So that's the draw to me, not the suffering in and of itself, but again, what that gives you access to.
Exactly.
Because when you're skiing for 10 hours a day, your mind's wandering. That's the hardest part. You can start thinking all kinds of things. And there were 4 times on the expedition where I crossed 20 kilometers, which is about 13 miles. And this was a milestone I really needed to hit. 4 times where I crossed 20, and then that night it snowed. The first time this happened, it was day 20. I hit 21.9 kilometers, about 15 miles. And I was excited. I thought, all right, now I got a shot. I can keep hitting these kind of distances. And it snowed so much that my kilometers went from 21.9 to 17 to 14 to 13. Doing the same amount of hours, but exercising so much more labor and effort and work because of the soft snow. I mean, there were days out there when my 2 sleds would get stuck in the soft snow every 3 steps. I would have to fight them out with all my might, and then 3 steps later, they get stuck again. And this would go on and on and on and on for over 9 hours a day. And the mental toll of that is excruciating. I had days where I would sit on my sled and literally just looked up and go, come on, give me a break, So that's the challenge and the draw. So, I mean, I had some of the lowest lows out there, and I'm not one to ever complain. My wife will tell you. I would call her every day from the satellite phone, and no matter how bad, I'm always like, everything's good. But there were 2 times out there when she was like, how are things? And I'm like, not good. I've been better, So, and I don't say that. So that's how hard it was. But what an opportunity to practice presence.
Right.
Some of the key, the mental tools to get me through these unrelenting hardships were, like, one was, for example, there's this Greek philosopher Heraclitus who said, no man sets foot in the same river twice, for he is not the same man and it is not the same river. So recognizing out there that every day I wake up, that version of me in that morning, even right now, this version of you and me that woke up this morning never exists again. This version is dead, is gone. So in some sense, every moment we are both dying and being reborn.
Yep.
When I bring myself into the full nowness of that moment and that realization, one of my mantras became die alive. If I am dying, a version of me is dying every moment. I'm going to choose to die in this moment fully alive. That means I'm going to make the entire spectrum of my reality in this now moment, and this is all that is real. So I'm going to feel this moment fully. And when you do that, you experience awe, like awe, the rapture of being alive, as Joseph Campbell put it. And so bringing this into the recognition was allowed me to keep fighting forward, even realizing that the idea of being monotonous. So Antarctica can feel very monotonous. When I share this, people, you're doing the same thing every day in the same terrain with nothing different. But monotony only exists if there's a past and a future. If there is no past and there is no future, there is no monotony. Even consistency. We all know it's essential to be successful in anything, to do the same thing over and over and over again. Why do people fail at it? Multiple reasons, but one of which is it feels daunting. Right? I can't, tomorrow I got to do the same shit again. It was hard today. But if you remove that aspect of tomorrow, if you recognize that today is your whole reality, and it's not even so much as live every day as if it's your last, because if it was my last, I wouldn't be dragging a 400-pound sled to friggin' Antarctica. It's more like live every day as if it's your entire life. If this day is my entire life, could I do this one thing that I said I would do, that I know I need to do? This is all there is. I only have to do it today. I only have to do it today. There is no tomorrow. There is no yesterday. And this takes practice. But now you'll see this. This is a core distinction of people who operate at a high level of mastery, is the ability to let go of the past instantly. In sports, you have to let go of the bad play that you just had. It's not about the last play. It's about the next play. And you'll hear people who don't operate at a high level of mastery, they are constantly talking about their past.
Yep.
Constantly.
They ruminate on it.
They ruminate on it.
They marinate in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love the distinction that you make between the non-present and the present, because this is what is, right? Of course, we can imagine a future and we can remember the past, but it doesn't necessarily exist.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%.
I mean, it does in your brain, of course, but not like, it's not physical.
Yeah.
So the only thing that matters is right now, today. I love the rapture of life.
The rapture of being alive. Yeah.
The rapture of being alive. That's so magical.
Words from Joseph Campbell, not my own, but yeah.
When I imagine you on the vast white plain with your 400-pound sled, it reminds me of, I think it's like the legend of Sisyphus or something. He's pushing the rock up the mountain.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, it's this flat white abyss that you're in, and it's still uphill.
Yeah.
That is insane.
It was unbelievably hard.
The amount of mental gymnastics that you probably needed to do in order to be like, just a few more goes. All that matters is today.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
You have to find many different mental weapons to access. You know, some days it was being in the now, other times it's gratitude. I get to choose my suffering. That's a luxury many in the world do not have. I've been to war. I've worked with survivors of sex trafficking, former child soldiers, people in poverty. Many people in the world don't have the luxury to even choose their own suffering. I did. That's a privilege. So gratitude for that. Other times accessing pure light in this bliss, in this moment. Other times going to the depths of darkness. I would have days where I was skiing, thinking about my brothers that I've lost in combat, the other friends I've lost through addiction, suicide over the years, and tapping into that as a weapon. You know, we're talking about the now and the not now. The key is to be able to access the not now, and that is both the past and the future, consciously as a mental weapon to drive you forward in the now. So the future, you set a goal to decide consciously who I want to be. And that you use as an access point to rise above the moments when you don't feel like, dude, the amount of times I did not feel like getting out of the tent on that in Antarctica, the amount of times was more than the times I actually felt like getting out of the tent.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I would wake up and see new snow. Everything was hurting from day one. You're always in pain out there, some degree of pain. And you have to fight that because there's a future version of you are choosing to step into.
Yep.
But the past only matters. The more you develop a training and mastery in the presence, then you can get to the point where you can only choose to access the past as a mental weapon. So so you access it in two ways, both the dark and the light. I'm going to remember all the trauma that I've been through, the hardship, the pain, the suffering. Got it. I'll use that. For me, it was honoring my brothers, remembering the hell. You've suffered more. Or also remembering all the things I've already done before. Tapping into that. I'm a legend. I can do hard shit. I'm stronger than I think I am. So tapping into that. You're using the past as a weapon. That's all it is.
So using your, I guess you could say the past evidence,
Exactly.
right? You go, well, I've done hard shit before. This is the exact same thing.
Exactly.
It's hard, but I can do it because I've done it before.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing inverse, right? You remember all the people that have doubted you, all of the traumas that you've been through, and you're like, shit, if I could live through that, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this 100%. What you said about goal setting in particular, our uniquely human attribute is the ability to envision possible futures and then to pick the one that we would most like to live.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like that.
And I don't, it's very surprising to me how little people embrace this basically magic feature of humanity. The fact that, and this is probably why we survived more than all the other humanoid things back in the day, because we could envision possible futures. We could go, okay, well, I could go over there and hang out with that tiger. Probably not great.
Yeah.
I could go over there and pick those berries that could be poison. I remember seeing a dude that ate one of those and he got poisoned. Or I could go over there and eat that fruit that looks fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over there and eat that fruit that looks fine.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's like a, well, what do you want to be? We have that freedom, like you said. When you said I can choose my suffering and that's a privilege, it reminds me of David Goggins' Choose Your Hard.
Yeah.
Where it's like being obese is hard and going to the gym is hard.
The way I put it is, if you don't seek out a worthy struggle, struggle will find you anyway.
Absolutely.
One way or the other, you're going to suffer in life. You decide. I mean, it took so much suffering in Antarctica, even getting to the start line. It was 4 years, raising $1.1 million from scratch, while training like an animal and planning food, gear, route, everything. All of this together at the same time was exhausting. In many ways, getting the starting line was almost harder than in Antarctica. But I would choose that suffering any day of the week than the suffering that for me would be the existential dread of not living who I want to be. I'm not saying everybody's path is Antarctica. It could be whatever, playing basketball, the guitar, building a business, whatever the thing is. But if that's your craft, that's your path, that's your purpose, why you are here, and you don't choose it, you're going to suffer anyway. Choosing anything worthwhile, you will suffer immensely. But any day of the week, that suffering is better than the suffering of the existential dread of what Henry David Thoreau, why he said most men, and I would argue most people, live lives of quiet desperation. That's why.
I was talking with Alex Mendosian, and he said something really interesting to me. I don't know if this was a study. I actually think it was. There was a study done of hospice patients, people that are literally on their deathbed, and every time they were asked, what's your biggest regret? And there were two kinds of regret, and it was I wish I hadn't done this, which was like that's rough. I wish I hadn't, cheated on my wife. I wish I hadn't done whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that doesn't even hold a candle to, I wish I had done this.
Yeah.
I wish I had spent more time with my kids.
Yeah.
I wish I had kids in the first place. I wish I had whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you just said suffering's going to find you regardless.
Yep.
It's not a possibility. It's going to happen.
Yep.
So choose it in the, I guess you could say in the pursuit of something that you deem as noble or you deem as worthy, right?
Yeah.
Worthy struggle.
Exactly.
I love that, man.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, people are so scared to leap out into the unknown and out there to the unknown, out onto the edge. And I get it. Evolutionary speaking, the unknown is more scary.
Yeah.
That's why that saying goes, the devil you know is greater than the devil you don't. So people will stay in an uncomfortable suffering now because just evolutionary speaking, I'm still alive, even if I'm uncomfortable. But the unknown, there's a thing that could kill me, right?
Yeah.
So we're so scared of leaping out onto the edge and getting hurt. But if you don't get hurt, you're never going to know the joy of life.
100%.
There can't be a summit without a valley. Contrast is what gives life its flavor. This is coming back to the concept of the paradox of oneness. You need pain to know pleasure. Even now in some of these circles of the hypermasculine edge, we've gone to this side of comfort is the enemy. Comfort is not the enemy. Too much comfort is, but comfort is valuable because there is discomfort,
right?
And vice versa, right?
Yep.
But for most people, why I stress the edge of suffering is because the nature of suffering is that it sucks. It's hard. That's the very nature of it. And more often than not, people are more comfortable with comfort. But take the example of Kobe Bryant. That man could suffer like nobody else, trained like an animal. His edge was actually recovery. One of his trainers said, you need to sleep more, right? Because so everybody's got their own edge, what I call the sacred edge. But you got to be willing to go out and leap and get hurt, and you're going to get hurt. Dude, I've gotten hypothermia. I've gotten heat exhaustion. I've lost 2 fingers to frostbite. I've been rejected. Your emotional pain, mental pain, physical pain. But that's okay. You play out on the edge.
Right.
But that's where you really find the bliss of the human experience and ultimately get the results you want, whatever those results may be.
When we're growing up and our knees hurt, our joints hurt, whatever, it's growing pains, right? Like physical, ow, my knees hurt. What the hell's going on, Mom? And it's like, well, you're a growing boy. That never stops. In order to grow, there needs to be pain.
Exactly.
Right? In order for comfort to exist, there needs to be discomfort.
Exactly. That's
really interesting because a lot of people forget, like we literally have a name for it. It is growing pains. Yeah. In order to grow, you must go through some sort of emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, whatever, some sort of pain or maybe discomfort's a better word.
Yeah.
In order to grow, you need to push the boundaries of your comfortability, and now you are comfortable with more because you have gone out into the unknown.
Exactly.
And like you said, evolutionarily, the unknown is scary as shit because there could be a tiger over there in those bushes, but there also could be like a pot of gold, or there could be, right? So it's really interesting that fear of the unknown hasn't been dropped off by humans yet.
And you can reframe it by practicing and training curiosity. The thing that drives me on all these places is curiosity and exploration. We all have within us, babies, what are they doing? They're exploring the world, right? As we grow up, everything, the multiple why questions, because we're curious, we're exploring. Touch into that, embrace that, embody that, and it's a training ground. I go out to Antarctica and I explore. I'm curious to see what is going to be revealed, what will be unearthed. Curiosity is like anything, a muscle to train. And when you train it, it develops more of a playful mindset to the unknown, because now I'm just excited to see what's out there.
Yeah.
Even if I get a little hurt. Most of us, barring if you're in a war zone or survival situation, you're not going to die. You'll be fine, you know? And again, we still have that caveman and cavewoman-like brains, so which is why it's so scary, but you have to transcend that, and that requires some conscious effort and energy to say, got it, I'm still going to go out there. And you can say, I want to be curious. I'm going to see what's out there. What can I learn? You're going to get hurt. Okay, got it. What did I learn from that? And then you take that to the next fight and the next fight and so on.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about with courage and fear, I forget who said this. I'm sure that you can put a name to this, but it was courage is not acting without fear; it's acting in spite of fear, which would mean that if I am the most scared person, the most fearful person in the world, and I pretend like I am not, and I do the thing anyway, I am by definition courageous. It's literally a fake it till you make it scenario. Yeah. If you're like, oh, I'm scared as shit to jump into this abyss, to go and do whatever it is, to go talk to that girl or to go to the gym for the first time.
Yeah.
But you just do it anyway, regardless of how you feel. That is by definition courageous.
Absolutely. You can't have courage without fear.
Exactly. So why not? And of course, like you said, barring a war zone or survival situation, you're probably not gonna die. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and there's we do have that caveman brain where it's like, well, if she rejects me, then I'm never gonna be able to mate ever again or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then once you get those battle scars, you can be like, okay, what did I learn?
Exactly.
Now I can do it better next time.
Exactly.
That's we talk about a lot on this show what we call the transformation equation, which is you have your vision plus your plan multiplied by your action equals transformation or the eventual, achievement of your goal. And historically, the hardest part has been developing a plan because everyone can envision something. I can envision the most beautiful home, and chances are I can act on creating that home, but what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I have to go make money first? Do I have to figure out how to bribe these builders? Like, what do I do? And a super important part of your plan is the fact that it's dynamic, meaning it changes with feedback. Because if you went to Antarctica and you had a rigid plan, how quickly would you need to throw it out the window because you're like, I didn't go as far as I wanted to today, or it snowed more than I expected it to. The importance of feedback into your plan is paramount to your success.
Yeah.
Especially when there's that battle scar scenario. You go outside, you get hurt, and you're like, okay, so I'm going to write that down. I'm going to figure out what happened, and then I'm going to feed it back into the plan, and then I'm going to go, okay, well, now that I know if I go straight and turn left, there's that sort of there's a cactus over there that I get pricked. So I'm going to go forward and then turn right, and then see what goes on there.
Yeah.
It's so important to not just have a rigid, super structured plan. It needs to be dynamic and a little bit. I was just talking with Whitney Jones, and she said, I have a plan for every day, and a function of my plan is the fact that I can throw it out the window at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just like, oh, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Boop.
Things happen.
And now we're going to go with the flow.
Yeah. The amount of times that plan changes getting to the starting line in Antarctica. 2 years before I went to Antarctica, I got frostbite. Expedition got delayed. The year before I actually went to Antarctica, I was supposed to go, but we didn't have the logistical plan or the money ready. Once again, plan got delayed. But you keep fighting. You keep fighting for the outcome, the result, but you fall in love with the pursuit. That's one of the big dualities I see causing people friction is the inability to focus on the process. Everybody wants the result now. And I get it. Like, I get where that's coming from, but that's this is the paradox of winning itself. The more you focus on winning, the less likely you are to achieve it. The more you focus on the fight, the more likely you are to actually end up winning. Yeah. And the greatest athletes will tell you this. They focus on the process, the pursuit, the chase, the grind, the fight. And that's what keeps you in the fight every day. You fall in love with that fight. And the winning is just a side effect because winning is so temporary. Whatever the winning may be, in a business you made $1 million, gone. The next day, wake up, you still got a new problem. Yep, you're still gonna have to fight. In sports, you win the champion and it's gone in an instant. Next day, you're back in the grind, right? So winning is so temporary; it's gone in an instant. And I'm not saying don't chase it. This is not saying it's about the journey, not the destination. Because if you're a winner, you want the destination, and God knows I get it. I do too. The point is focus on the fight, and that's when you get the results of the victory.
And there's like you said, there's always another mountain.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I made $1 million. Now I want 10.
Exactly.
Now I want 100. Now, right? And there's never really a Are you familiar with gold medalist syndrome?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
There's a whole documentary on Netflix, the weight of gold, about mental health struggles that Olympic athletes go through.
Well, I mean, it is. Maybe terrifying is not the word, but it's very disconcerting that you can train your entire life for a thing, and you've spent 20, 30 years just doing the thing, just fighting the battle, and then you finally get that gold medal, you finally get the financial milestone or whatever it is, and then you go, okay,
now what?
Now, yeah, exactly. Now what? Yeah. What are we doing here?
Yeah,
it's basically an identity crisis.
Yeah,
because your entire identity before was I'm going to get to number one.
Yeah,
and now you're there. What's next?
Yeah. That's why I recommend, whether it be athletes I work with or others, is first getting very crystal clear on your ultimate North Star. A way to think about it is, what are the words you want on your tombstone? And then from there, you get a philosophy statement that becomes your guiding light towards that path. From there, you can get clear on visions, on milestones, on values, all the essential ingredients of who you are. And that becomes your North Star. So even when you win that goal, there's still a mission. Even in Antarctica, I was upset when I didn't complete the crossing. Even though I knew it was on the cusp of impossible, even the company that organizes logistics told me anyone who attempts this will probably fail. So I knew it was on the cusp of impossible. I still wanted it, and I struggled for about a week mentally, like an Olympic athlete. You train for 4 years and you don't win that gold, right? So I went through that, but got it. But there's a bigger mission. So for me, my North Star, the words I want on my tombstone, these are words based on Carl Jung's quote, not my own. He wandered the world with human heart to doctor the sick with human soul. So that becomes a North Star. So it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter whether I quote unquote fail or win. The mission is still bigger than me, and the mission will exist until I die. And that's why with athletes and business entrepreneurs, whoever, when you get clear on all of that thing, it's valuable to get attached onto an identity temporarily. But the more you start seeing that, at least to me it is, and some people might disagree, but when you start fully embodying and recognizing that the entire paradigm through which we operate in reality is a construct. So I'll give you an example of what I mean from even the most basic level. When I see this, it's a white couch. How do I know this is a white couch? I've been taught from a young age, this thing that I'm seeing is a couch, this thing is white. So it's a space between pure reality and my construct of what I ascribe onto that reality, that lens of reality. As we move through reality, we are not seeing it as it is. We're seeing it through our lens. And when you start fully embodying this and you recognize that the entire way we move through reality is a lens, how we view ourselves as a construct of our own identity, you can then attach and detach at will. And that's the key. So even when I first started doing this, as I would drive, I would repeat this mantra to myself. I'm awakened to the truth that all of my reality is an illusion. Why is that a red car? Because it's a construct. And I would just start firstly just becoming aware that everything I'm seeing is a construct. I'm awakened to the truth that all reality is an illusion. And now when you become aware of that space, got it. Okay, cool. So that's why I can get attached to an identity that I'm a polar explorer. This is all who I am. This is everything I am. And yes, there's a micro period of death of that identity when it's gone, but who cares? I believe there's actually value to attaching to the identity fully with the recognition that that identity is a construct. And that's coming back to the duality. The ability to hold two opposing thoughts in mind at the same time is a reflection of true spiritual mastery. And when you do that, you'll attain also craft mastery at whatever your path is.
It's also a reflection of the universe. Nothing is ever just one way.
Exactly.
Ever.
Exactly.
Right? I love the idea of using identity or perhaps identities as tools to do whatever it is you do. And I love what you were saying about the North Star. I think it's like a Jeff Bezos quote or something. He's like the how changes, but the why never changes.
Yeah.
It's always for this.
Exactly.
But the way that we get there may switch up. The medium through which we communicate this idea or this mission may change. How would you go about creating a decision-making framework or finding your North Star? Because once you have that North Star or that life vision or whatever it is, you kind of have a decision-making framework to make all of your decisions through.
Yeah.
I want to be an investment banker at JP Morgan. Does going to the bar get me closer or further away from that goal? If it's further, no chance. If it's closer, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How would you go about creating a decision-making framework for yourself?
So all of us, you, me, all of us, we don't know what we don't know. So we're ultimately pulling from our lens of reality through the experiences we've had. So the more experiences you've had, the more you can get crystal clear that this is your North Star. I mean, mine, I only got crystal clear on this, I think, 7-8 years ago. So, some people know it early. If you're a Tiger Woods or Kobe played basketball when he's 5, you know your path, you know your mission.
Yep.
And it evolves. In terms of the why evolves, at first there's a little bit more ego. You'll see this in young athletes. And then they realize that kind of gaps on that. So, you don't, at first, depending on where you're in your journey, if you're younger, you may not have as many life experiences. And not necessarily. Some young people have experienced more life experience than people who are twice their age, right? But you take what you know and you start building at least the frameworks of that identity. And it may evolve, right? Again, being open to that. But you start crystallizing that. And a way to do that is you can get outside help, work with a coach, a mentor, whatever. But I think at the core of it, you have to spend some time alone and still. So there's a great quote from the French philosopher Blaise Pascal who said, all of humanity's problems stems from man's inability to sit by himself in a room alone. And I believe stillness is one of the greatest human fears. It's not a fear that if you ask people, what are you scared of? Almost nobody's going to say stillness.
Yep.
But if you look at how people live, they will do everything to avoid being with themselves. Everything. Whether it be Netflix, alcohol, addiction, and sometimes even the positive things. You see this with entrepreneurs all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They will grind, and I respect the grind, I don't doubt it, but they're not doing it from a place of curiosity. Not all of them, of course, some of them, but they're doing it just to escape themselves.
Yeah.
And when you sit still with yourself, it's very, very hard. It will challenge you, inevitably. That's the inherent nature of stillness. It's not just going to open the doors and all the sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns are going to come out, right? People think meditation is always relaxing. No, it's not. Because when you sit still with yourself, you're also opening the doors to your darkness. And that's actually why I did 2 darkness retreats, where I first spent 7 days in a pitch dark room, and the second time 10 days in a pitch dark room. Completely dark. You cannot see your hand in front of you. Darkness. 24/7 sitting in there. There is nowhere outside of yourself to go but within. Now, I'm not saying that's the only path to stillness. I could not recommend that highly enough for everybody, but I have one kid who was so inspired by my darkness retreat, he locked himself in a dark closet for an hour just to go within. I was like, that's badass. Start there, right? When you go still within yourself, you will start finding answers that you can't find with anybody else. Because no matter who you work with, I don't care if they're like the most successful, famous personal development guru or whatever, they're still bringing their constructs onto you.
100%.
And those constructs will shape your reality unless you are highly self-aware to recognize that they're in prison. I see this all the time. Flawed methodologies of working with people that will work because unless, again, you're highly practiced and trained and achieved spiritual mastery, someone who has the level of at least is framed as an expert, you'll take in whatever they tell you.
Yeah.
And then that becomes your reality, right? And it's damaging. We won't
absolutely.
go down that rabbit hole. But point is to say that's why you need time alone. To start building your own frameworks, to get clear on how we see realities and illusions, to start choosing your own lenses and your own paradigms separate from the paradigms of everybody else. And then you can start getting crystal clear. Okay, this is my North Star. These are my values. This is my philosophy statement. I have a philosophy statement that guides me. My philosophy statement is the path to inner peace is the pursuit of a worthy and loving inner war. That's my philosophy, right? That's the guiding light to that North Star. How many people have a philosophy statement? Not a lot. So get crystal clear on that. And again, it might evolve to get to that crystallization of a one-liner like that. It didn't happen overnight for me. But when you have that, now you know. Now you know this is what I'm about. So every day, if I don't go to bed having worked my ass off, that to me is not a well-lived day. I want to go to bed exhausted because to me, and I'm not saying everybody has to operate this way, the greatest rest is the rest that is earned. So if I haven't earned my rest, it's not valuable. So that's my guiding light for me. Even my own wife thinks I'm a little nuts, but that's a separate problem. So I'm not saying you have to operate the way I do, but the point is find your mechanisms for how you move through life.
Yeah.
And you do that through, I think outside guidance is valuable, but stillness is essential.
I like the idea of the dark room retreat situation because it forces you to go inward.
Yeah.
Right?
There's nowhere outside to go.
We can recognize that, I guess you could say consciousness can point in two directions. It can either go out where we make sense of our reality, or I guess our version of reality, or it can go inward where we go, okay, well, what do I believe?
Yeah.
What do I want? Why do I want that? Who am I? Things that only we can answer. It doesn't matter how much you pay a coach. They can't tell you what you want. They can't tell you why you believe what you believe.
Exactly.
They can, to your point, sort of inject you with their beliefs or inject you with their desires, but that's detrimental.
Yeah.
Because it's not you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, especially today, for kids my age and a little bit older, everyone's on their phones.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching Netflix. There is never any point where you have the, I don't like saying you'd never have the time because everybody has time, but you never have the gap between stimulation to think about anything.
Yeah.
You're filling your brain with a bunch of useless nonsense at all times.
Yeah.
If you just took a break, like that kid you were talking about, for an hour, he went into a dark closet. I'm sure he figured some shit out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Channel exercise your demons, bring it to the surface.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you never take the time to do that, all of that stuff is just left within you completely unexercised.
Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
I love that so much. I love that so much. And it absolutely is true,
100%.
especially for beliefs, foundational beliefs. I believe that money is the root of all evil, but I want to make $1 million. I don't think I'm going to make $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did you go about replacing the beliefs that you saw didn't serve you anymore? Was it more of a, I'm letting go of this identity and creating a new one? Or is it like, well, there's this one belief about relationships, about money, about health and fitness that I'm going to take out and replace with something that serves me?
The first step, if you are early on this path to mastery, both internal and whatever your craft may be, is just going to war with yourself. One of my many mantras is belief is built on the battlefield. So I don't give it, like, I think we spend too much time in the personal development realm, how to go within and conquer your limiting beliefs. Like, I actually say, fuck your limiting beliefs. Just go to war with yourself, and then you will build beliefs on the battlefield. So it's not that beliefs are not important. Clearly, we've talked about the placebo effect and the value, but initially, just start doing hard things. Go to war, build yourself. And then you start stacking evidence, right? And so as you achieve higher and higher on the path of mastery, then your beliefs become more important. Like, to do what I did in Antarctica, I had to believe that I was strong enough to even get to the start line. I had to believe I was legendary. But there was a time in my life I did not believe anything about myself or anything. I just started doing things, right? Action is the teacher. There's this great quote from the psychologist B.F. Skinner. He says, everyone knows the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. But if I leave it out in the sun, starve it, and bleed it out, I can guarantee I can make it drink. Put yourself in a situation where you are, metaphorically speaking, starved, bled out, and in the sun, and you will, quote unquote, drink that water. You will alter your paradigm. You will shift your realization. So for somebody listening who's newer on, just start doing things. If, let's say, you take the belief, money is the root of all evil, and you don't want to make money, just go do something to make some money. Did money improve your life? Oh, got it. Yeah, it's a tool. It made my life better. It made me do. Money's not going to solve all your internal problems, as we all know, but it certainly can solve a lot of problems.
100%.
Like, does money make you happy? It can give you. I couldn't have done all the awesome things I've done without money. So I love having money to do cool shit and to make a greater impact. Right. Yeah. So if you have that paradigm, just put yourself in a situation, you start making some money, and then you build, and that's not hard to do. Work a shit job for a week if you want, whatever it may be. And again, barring extreme circumstances, of course, war zones or whatever. But start making something and then see, okay, hey, money can give me, do the XYZ situation. Got it. Now I'm starting to stack evidence that money is valuable. Okay, cool. Let me keep stacking that evidence. Let me keep stacking that evidence. And then you start seeing, all right, cool. Now I want to make more of this shit. But action is the core. I think stillness, obviously I'm not demonizing stillness. This comes back to that duality and the paradox of oneness. I just talked about the value of stillness. But I think sometimes in the world of personal development, we spend way too much damn time going to seminar. And this even has a term for it, seminar junkies, right? We'll go to seminar after seminar after seminar after seminar, reading. I don't give a shit if you read 52 books in a year. Read one book and go do something with it. Right. There's a quote from Bruce Lee, like, I fear the man who's mastered one kick rather than the man who can test 10,000 or whatever the version of that quote is. So do something, take action, then you cultivate belief, and then you become legendary. That's how you become you build the ability to have a delusional belief in your own identity. Athletes are another great example of this. Before Messi or Ronaldo or Tom Brady became them, they knew they were legendary. How did they even start with that belief? First, they started taking action. And then they had enough evidence because they're attaching their self-identity, their self-belief, and their confidence to the work, not to the result. That's how you can have an irrational belief in your ability to be great. And this is a key lesson here, is attach your self-identity to the work. So every day you did that thing, you didn't feel like going to the gym, but you went anyway. Acknowledge yourself. Pause. Especially if you're early on the journey. Really hit that home. It's like giving a dog a treat, right? Where our minds are the same animal minds. What do? You give a dog a treat when he does the right behavior. You can do the same thing for yourself. I'm going to pat myself on the back, celebrate. Hey, I went to the gym today. Next day, I went to the gym again. I'm a fucking warrior. And you don't have to talk like me. That's just how I talk myself. But find your own flavor of that. But the next day, now you're cultivating a belief that I am one who goes to war, who takes action, who celebrates. That's how you then believe the delusional belief to be, I can achieve whatever the hell I want to achieve because I'm one who does the work.
Self-esteem doesn't come from shouting affirmations at a mirror. It comes from building a mountain of undeniable evidence that you are who you say you are.
Hormozy, right?
Yeah.
Yep, I love Hormozy.
Dude, he's a quote machine.
He's a beast.
He also said, hard work works on you more than you work on it.
Exactly.
Which is like, dude, put that on my gravestone. Are you kidding me? Yes. Exactly. Because it's exactly what you just said. Instead of just implanting a belief and being like, I am in shape. I'm an in-shape athlete.
Yeah.
You got to do the things so that you sort of prove yourself right.
Exactly.
And then you can, instead of just, throwing that into your identity or whatever it is, you can consciously cultivate it and be like, well, I've done this for 175 days in a row.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty good at it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I've done this, God knows how many times. I think I'm one of the better people because I don't know many people that have gone to the gym for 840 days in a row or whatever it is.
Exactly.
I used to have a limiting belief that I wasn't a great orator. I wasn't great at conversation. And then I was like, well, I should talk to more people.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love it.
And then maybe I'll get better at it.
Yeah.
Because the amount of repetitions, the volume of repetitions that you do, that's the only way to get better.
Exactly.
Like you can sit in your room and be like, I am great. I am in shape. I am fit. And it's like, well, have you gone to the gym in the last year?
Yeah.
No. Well, what are we doing?
Exactly.
What the fuck are we doing here? Right?
Exactly.
I 100% agree with you. I think in the personal development space, there are the seminar junkies, like you said. There's the people that want the they want the effect without the cause. It's the manifestation thing, and I do think that visualization is incredibly important. But I think that's the first step of a process that requires action.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you are offering the miracle diet, the magic pill, the get rich quick scheme, the rewire your brain seminar to attract more whatever it is, you can't just go to a seminar, listen to a guy, and then be like, oh, my life has changed.
Yeah.
You need to change your life.
Yeah.
Like you said, you read 52 books in a year. That's awesome. Read one and do something.
Do something.
Because that is literally more important than reading, I read all these books and now I'm the coolest guy ever. It's like, no, you need to do something about it.
Yeah.
You need to do something about it.
Yeah.
There's opportunity comes when preparation meets, I forget what it is. Or no, opportunity is when preparation meets
luck, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And you need to be prepared. Because if you didn't prepare for Antarctica, I think you were eating like 6,000 calories a day or something. Is that right?
In Antarctica, I was eating 5,700.
Good.
Training to it, I had to train. I had to get fat because I had to have fat to lose because I was
because you're How many calories were you burning a day? Was it like
I was burning about 8,000 plus, and so I lost weight out there. That's why I needed fat on me.
If you didn't prepare for that, it would have been.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have made it to 60 days.
Exactly, it would have been
dragged a 420-pound sled for 500 miles. That was a result of a lot of hard work.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you could go back to young Akshay and give him a piece of advice, what would it be?
It's interesting. I thought about that question. I think I was too dumb to listen. If I look at pre-Marine Akshay, but I think the key lesson that I would think is, what got you here won't get you there. So when you're early on in the path, as I said, belief is built on a battlefield. You just need to do things. And then later on, the tools to go from, when you're at the highest levels, you're looking for 0.1% edges, right? So those tools, we'll sidestep that for now. When I was a dumbass in high school, I think the focus would have been some version of falling in love with the pursuit of a challenge, not the result. And giving myself tools, advice to do that. And at least ingraining firstly that awareness. I don't think I had that awareness at that time.
Right.
I was literally a moron as a young kid. But just giving that awareness that this is how you build a better now and a better tomorrow is let me just embrace the fight for the sake of the fight. The result, fuck the result. I'm not saying you don't want it. You have a target to aim for, but it's a side effect. It's a side effect of the pursuit. And I think when you're early on the path, that's one of the core lessons that I've seen a lot of people struggle with. I mean, all this stuff like, procrastinate, and we'll be like, procrastination is some thing from my past that did this and this and the other thing happened. Like, fuck it. Like, no, you just don't want to do hard work. And I'm sorry, it sounds a little harsh, but that's what it boils down to.
It's absolutely
That's
true.
what it boils down to,
Yep.
right? This thing was hard, so I'll go do the thing that is not hard. I'll go watch the TV or whatever. So if you fall in love with the hard, and like anything, it becomes a muscle. You just have to train it.
Absolutely.
Start with 5 minutes. I don't care if it's 2 minutes, right? I've done that with a client who used to struggle with writing. He would get anxiety and then go watch Netflix. All right, first, we're just going to do it for a minute. And I just want you to acknowledge the emotion. This is also a key lesson. I talk much deeper about this in the book Fearvana. Sorry, I'm going a long-winded answer to your question, but I think this is a valuable lesson. Is something called second dart syndrome. So Buddha said we're all stabbed by the 2 darts of suffering. The first dart is the one we don't control. So I'll give you the example of my client. He would get anxiety every time he sat on his computer to write. Now, at the time, he no longer controlled it. His brain had built a pattern that, in simplistic terms, said computer equals anxiety.
Yeah.
So that's the first dart. The second dart is the real cause of unnecessary suffering, tied back to what I said earlier, resisting or clinging. So now we demonize the anxiety. I should not feel this way. What's wrong with me? Why am I a piece of shit? And that dialogue that we all have around the thing. So at first, I said, we don't control this first dart. Everybody else had tried to help him get rid of the anxiety. I said, we're not going to demonize the anxiety or get rid of it. I just want you to acknowledge its presence. Hey, I'm feeling anxious. Neuroscience has actually shown when you label an emotion, it reduces activity in the limbic brain, the emotional brain, and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, the human brain, as I call it in the book Fearvana, the part of our brain, focus and awareness. Feeling anxiety. Got it. All right, I'm just going to type for 30 seconds. Cool. 30 seconds becomes a minute, becomes 2, becomes 5. And now you build a new pattern that in time you change the first dart. In time, he no longer felt anxiety even sitting on the computer. But you don't demonize the first dart. You acknowledge it, and you control the second dart. That's our point of power.
So acknowledging sort of brings a separation between you and the emotion.
Exactly.
Because you are now observing the emotion as opposed to it afflicting you or something like that.
Exactly. You're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings, you're not your experiences. You are the thinker of your thoughts, the feeler of your feelings, and the experiencer of your experiences. There is a space between what is and who you choose to be outside of what is. If you aren't aware of that space, you'll be a slave. If you become aware of that space and master that space, then you can control your reality.
Where can our audience go to find out more about your mission, buy your book, check you out on social media?
The book is on Amazon, paperback, Kindle, Audible. You can find me at my website, fearvana.com, and Instagram at Fearvana, Fearvana.
Thank you so much for your time, man. This is awesome.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me.